The fear before the battle. The great hall of the alien empire was filled with shadows and firelight. Tall banners of crimson hung from the ceiling, each carrying the symbol of their rule, the symbol of dominance over 100 worlds. At the center of the hall stood General Zirin, the one who had never lost a battle. His armor shone in the dim light, and his voice carried across the chamber with pride. "Our fleet is unmatched," he declared. "No species dares to challenge us. Our cannons burn planets, our shields stop suns, and now these humans, these weaklings from a death world, dare to enter our space." The council laughed with him. Their voices echoed, filling the great chamber with arrogance. The aliens remembered humans as latecomers, a small species with fragile bodies. They had heard whispers that humans were fighters, survivors, but to the Empire, it was only a joke. Yet, even as the laughter filled the air, General Zirin's eyes grew dark. He had lived through too many wars. He had seen enemies who looked strong crumble like sand, and enemies who looked weak rise like fire. Something about these humans did not feel simple. Moments later, a messenger rushed into the hall. His scales were pale, his hands shaking. "General, we have reports. Human ships have crossed the border into the Morses sector. They fly directly into our territory. They are not hiding. They are not afraid." The council erupted again, voices of amusement louder than ever. "A few ships?" One commander shouted, "Do they wish to be erased?" "In seconds?" Another laughed. "Perhaps humans want to beg for mercy." But Zirin did not laugh. His claws gripped the edge of the war table. He stared at the holographic map where tiny blue signals blinked. Human ships, small compared to their armada of thousands. Why would they come? He whispered, "Why now?" The messenger bowed low. "General, they show no signs of slowing. They fly like they own the stars." Zirin straightened his back. His voice turned cold. "Prepare the fleet. We will intercept them before they reach the heart of our empire. I will lead the attack myself." Outside the hall, the massive fleet of the empire came alive. Engines roared, lights burned across the blackness of space. Thousands of warships aligned like a wall of fire and steel. Their weapons hummed with power. Every officer on board believed it would be another simple victory. The soldiers joked as they armed their cannons. "Humans will vanish before they even fire a shot," said one. "It will be like crushing insects under a boot," said another. But on the flagship's bridge, General Zirin stood silent. He looked out into the void. He remembered the ancient stories whispered by old warriors. Stories of humans fighting wars on their own deadly world, surviving storms, monsters, and endless conflict. He pushed the thoughts aside, yet the unease clung to him. Hours passed as the fleets drew closer. The alien armada stretched across space like an ocean of fire, waiting to drown the intruders. Then, at last, they saw them, a handful of human ships, small, dark, and silent, drifting forward without fear. "Magnify," Zirin ordered. The screen showed the strange design of the human vessels. Sharp lines, black hulls that seemed to drink the light. "So few," an officer muttered. "They must be mad." Zirin's jaw tightened. His instincts screamed. He had fought too many wars not to feel danger when it was near. "Do not underestimate them," he said. "Pride has ended greater empires than ours." The officers nodded, but smirked behind his back. To them, humans were nothing. A silence settled over the fleet as the human ships continued forward. No signals of peace, no attempt to escape. They moved like predators, walking into the den of prey, calm and fearless. On the alien flagship, the crew waited for Zirin's command. One word and thousands of cannons would fire. The general stared at the small fleet. His claws tapped against the table. His heart felt heavier with every passing second. Why would humans march into certain death? Why did they not fear? The question twisted in his mind like a blade. Then he spoke, his voice low but firm. Open channels to all fleets. Prepare for engagement. Let the galaxy see what happens when humans challenge the Empire. The officers cheered their confidence. Returning across the stars, thousands of ships turned their cannons toward the human fleet. Weapons hummed, shields glowed, engines blazed. It was a storm waiting to be unleashed. But as Zyron looked once more at the human ships, he felt it again. That cold whisper in his heart, the whisper of fear, and he realized something terrible. The battle had not even begun, and yet, for the first time in his life, he was not sure of victory. He was not sure of survival. He was afraid. The first strike, the silence of space was broken. Only by the steady hum of alien war engines, thousands of ships hung in formation, their weapons locked on the small group of human vessels. It was a sight of absolute power. The alien empire believed nothing could stand against them. On the flagship bridge, General Ziran raised his claw. "Begin the attack," he ordered. His voice echoed with certainty. Cannons lit up the void. Beams of fire cutting across the darkness. Missiles roared forward like hunting beasts. Thousands of weapons fired in unison. It was as if an entire star had exploded. For a brief moment, the crew celebrated. They saw nothing could survive such a storm. "The humans are gone," one officer laughed. "No ship can live through that." Another added, "But then the lights cleared. The human ships were still there. Not a single one destroyed, not even damaged. They moved forward through the fire, as if the storm had never touched them." Confusion swept across the alien bridge. "Impossible," an officer whispered. "Our cannons struck them directly," another shouted. "Their shields. They bent the beams. They redirected the blasts." General Zyron's eyes narrowed. He had expected resistance, but not this. He could see now that the human ships were not ordinary. They carried weapons and defenses the Empire had never encountered. Then the humans struck back. The first shot came without warning. A single beam of white light cut across space and tore through an alien battleship in an instant. The ship exploded into fragments, drifting like burning ash. Before the aliens could react, another human ship fired, then another. Their weapons did not roar with thunder. They whispered with silence. Silent flashes that ripped massive cruisers apart in seconds. "Impossible," the aliens cried. "They are too small. How can their firepower be so great?" But it was not just the power of the shots. It was their precision. Every beam hit with surgical accuracy. Every missile curved mid-flight, chasing its prey until impact. No wasted energy, no random fire. It was as if humans could see through. Every alien shield on the bridge, the crew panicked. "Our numbers are meaningless." An officer screamed. "They cut through us like we are nothing." General Ziran's claws dug into the table. He forced himself to remain calm, but his heart pounded. He had never seen weapons like these. Humans were not fighting like barbarians. They were fighting with purpose, with cold calculation. Ship after ship fell. Dozens of alien cruisers vanished in fire. The human fleet moved like hunters, striking, vanishing. Striking again, the aliens fired blindly into the dark. But the humans seemed always one step ahead. "General, they are reading our tactics." A commander shouted, "Every time we shift formation, they already know. They strike at our weakest points." The crew trembled. Fear spread faster than the battle itself. General Zyron stared at the battlefield. He saw his armada, his pride, his empire's strength, being torn apart in minutes. He whispered under his breath, How can so few destroy so many?" The answer came as another blast tore through a dreadnought. Humans were not just fighting. They were sending a message. The alien fleet tried to regroup. Ships pulled back into defensive lines, but the humans broke through them with ease. There, weapons sliced through shields. Their missiles hunted fleeing vessels. One officer collapsed to the ground. "We cannot win," he gasped. "They are Deathworlders, born to fight, born to kill." The word spread across the bridge like poison. Deathworlders. For the first time, the officers understood what it meant. Humans were not supposed to exist, not supposed to thrive. And yet they had grown strong in a world that killed everything weak. General Zyron clenched his fists. He looked at the destruction. The screams of his officers filled the air. His fleet was collapsing before his eyes, and yet the humans had not even unleashed their full strength. The humans did not waste words. They did not gloat. They did not hesitate. They struck with silence, with precision, with the calm of executioners. "Pull the reserve fleet forward," Zyron roared. "We will crush them with everything we have." Thousands more ships moved into the battle, but the human fleet did not slow. They moved like shadows, like predators cutting through prey. For every alien ship, another explosion filled the void. The general felt it now. Fear, deep and real. His claws trembled. His heart refused to believe, but his eyes could not lie. The Empire's greatest armada, the pride of generations, was being shattered in minutes. And in that moment, as another wave of alien ships was erased, General Zyron finally understood. The truth: the humans had not come to fight. They had come to end the war before it even began. The impossible weapons, the battlefield, was a graveyard of burning metal. Alien ships drifted in ruins, their broken frames glowing red against the cold dark of space. Yet the human fleet moved untouched, their black hulls gleaming like predators. In the void, on the flagship, General Zyron gripped the edge of the war table. His claws shook. His officers' faces were pale. Their voices trembled as they tried to understand. "These weapons, they are not natural," one whispered. "No empire has ever built such machines." Another said, "They are bending physics. Shields should not twist like that." The truth was clear. The humans were fighting with technology the galaxy had never seen. Alien scanners tried to track the blasts, but the data made no sense. The human cannons did not release energy in straight lines. They folded, split, and curved as if obeying the human's will. Missiles danced through the void, weaving past defenses. "Striking with perfect precision, General," an engineer cried. "It is as if their weapons think. They change direction. Mid-flight, they adapt, they learn." Zyron's chest grew heavy. He realized what they faced was not just superior firepower. It was intelligence, cold and merciless. Another alien cruiser exploded on the screen. Then another, human weapons cut through shields like paper. Armor that once took hours to break now fell in seconds. The bridge filled with panic. "Our strongest dreadnoughts are falling like scouts," an officer shouted. "It's impossible." But Zyron's mind churned. He remembered the whispers from spies, the rumors that humans were not bound by rules, that they broke science apart and rebuilt it with madness, that they used chaos as a weapon. And now he saw it with his own eyes. Humans were not using the galaxy's technology. They were using something else, something no alien could understand. A massive blast shook the flagship. Alarms screamed. The general steadied himself. "Focus our fire. Strike one of their ships with everything we have," he ordered. The fleet obeyed. Hundreds of alien cannons targeted a single human vessel. The void lit up with concentrated fire. The human ship was swallowed by explosions. For a brief moment, the crew cheered. "We destroyed one," they shouted. Relief spread across the bridge, but when the light cleared, the human ship was still there, its hull glowing with strange patterns. As if the fire had been absorbed, the ship turned slowly, and in one silent shot, it erased 3 alien cruisers. In reply, the bridge fell silent. It was not defense, it was mockery. "They are playing with us," an officer whispered. "We cannot touch them. We cannot even make them bleed." General Zyron closed his eyes. He could feel the truth settling over him like ice. Humans had turned weapons into something alive, and against that, his armada was helpless. The human fleet spread out. Each ship moved with unnatural grace. They did not stumble. They did not panic. They struck like hunters, who already knew the ending. Every alien weapon seemed useless. Beams reflected back at their own ships. Missiles redirected toward their allies. Energy drained from cannons before they could fire. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. The aliens had believed they ruled the stars, but the humans were showing them a new reality. "General," one officer begged, "we must retreat. If we stay, none of us will survive." Zyron's claws slammed into the table. "Retreat? Do you want the galaxy to see us crawl away like insects?" He growled, but even as he spoke, he felt the weight in his chest. He knew retreat was already impossible. Humans were not simply winning. They were choosing who lived and who died. Another explosion rocked the fleet. A dreadnought screamed across the comms before it fell silent forever. The humans moved through the chaos, untouchable. Xeron stared at them, his voice lowered to a whisper. These weapons, they should not exist. His second-in-command turned, fear in her eyes. Then maybe humans should not exist either. The words cut through the bridge like a blade. For the first time, the officers realized what they were facing. Humans were. Not just another species. They were something the galaxy had never prepared for. Something born on a death world. Something that built impossible weapons because survival demanded it. And as the fleet crumbled, General Zyron finally understood. This was not just the defeat of an armada. It was the death of an illusion. The Empire had believed it was untouchable, invincible, eternal. But in minutes, humans had shown the truth. The galaxy had been living in a dream. And now it was waking up to a nightmare. The collapse of the battlefield no longer looked like a war. It looked like a slaughter. Alien ships burned across the void. Broken hulks spinning in silence, their fleets once stretched like an endless wall. Now they were scattered like dying embers. The humans had cut through them with impossible weapons, and the destruction did not stop. On the flagship, General Zyron's officers shouted in panic. "We are losing entire squadrons in seconds. Our dreadnought shields are collapsing. We cannot hold formation." Zyron's claws trembled. He wanted to scream, but the words caught in his throat. This was more than defeat. It was collapse. The Empire had never imagined such a moment. Their fleets had crushed rebellions, silenced uprisings, erased planets from the map. But against humans, everything that made them strong now shattered. Another human strike lit up the void. A carrier exploded, then a cruiser, then an entire wing. The humans did not pause. They moved like shadows, merciless and calm. On alien ships, panic spread. Crews abandoned their posts. Officers screamed orders that no one followed. Ships broke from formation, fleeing blindly. Some even turned on each other in chaos. "General, we cannot control them," shouted his second-in-command. "The fleet is falling apart." Zyron's chest grew heavier with every passing second. His armada, his pride, was dissolving in fear. The humans had not just broken their weapons. They had broken their will. A transmission burst across the bridge. A captain of one of the outer fleets. His voice was wild with terror. "General, we cannot fight them. They see everything we do. They strike before we can act. My men are abandoning ship. We are already dead." The signal cut into static. His ship was gone a moment later. The crew stared at the screen, their faces pale. Their empire's might was turning to ash. Zyron forced his voice to rise above the panic. "Hold the line." He roared. "If we scatter, they will hunt us down one by one." But deep inside, he knew it was already happening. Humans hunted with precision. They did not chase blindly. They struck where fear was strongest, cutting apart the fleet piece by piece. One officer collapsed to his knees, whispering, "They are not fighting us. They are erasing us." The words rang true. The humans fought with silence. No wasted shots, no mercy. Every strike was an execution. The general turned to the war map. Entire sectors of his fleet had gone dark. His armada of thousands was shrinking to hundreds, then less. and the humans were still untouched. His second-in-command leaned close, her voice shaking. "General, this is not war. This is judgment." The word struck him, judgment. He had seen many enemies before, but none like this. Humans had come not only to win, but to show the Empire the cost of arrogance. The bridge shook as another explosion rippled through the fleet. A dreadnought shattered into fragments. Its pieces drifted past the flagship's windows, glowing like dying stars. Siren looked into the void, his reflection staring back at him. He thought of the Empire's pride, of the Council's laughter when they had spoken of humans. And now that pride lay burning across the stars. "General," an officer cried, "should we surrender? Send signals? Anything?" The room fell silent. The word surrender had never been spoken in the Empire's halls. But now, with death pressing closer, it hung in the air like a curse. Zirin's claws dug into the table, his voice low, broken. "They will not accept." Surrender. The officers turned pale. They understood. Humans had not come for terms. They had come for an ending. The human fleet cut deeper, moving with terrifying calm. Alien ships scattered like prey animals, their discipline gone. The once proud Empire looked like frightened children. And General Zirin finally realized what true collapse was. It was not the loss of ships. It was not the destruction of weapons. It was the moment when fear spread faster than orders, when soldiers stopped believing in victory. It was the moment an Empire's spirit broke. And in that moment, as flames filled the void, the alien Empire collapsed. The last stand, the battlefield was fire. Wreckage drifted across the stars, entire fleets reduced to dust. Yet one ship still held formation, the alien flagship, General Zirin's last fortress. The Empire's once endless armada was gone. Thousands of ships destroyed in minutes. Only a few hundred remained, scattered and broken. Their crews screamed over coms, begging for orders. Some begged for rescue, some begged for forgiveness. But General Zirin would not allow himself to beg. His chest burned with rage and shame. His people looked to him, and if he fell silent now, the Empire would die without even a whisper. "Prepare the core cannons," he ordered, his voice low, steady, though fear clawed at his mind. "Gather what ships we have left. We will strike them together." The officers turned in shock. "General, if we fire the cores, we will burn ourselves with them," one said. Zirin's claws dug into the table. "Better to burn than to crawl. If this is to be our end, we will make the humans bleed with us." His second-in-command nodded slowly, her face pale, but she obeyed. She sent the signal. The last ships gathered like broken teeth around the flagship, their weapons charging with desperate light. The humans watched in silence. Their fleet moved like shadows, surrounding the remnants of the Empire, calm, patient. "General," an officer whispered, "they are waiting for us to act. They want to see our last move." Zirin bared his teeth. His voice thundered across the bridge. "Then let them see the strength of the Empire. Let them see we do not kneel." The core cannons charged, light building brighter than stars. It was a weapon never meant to be used. A weapon of last resort. It would tear apart everything within range, human or alien, friend or foe. The crew trembled. They knew the cost, but fear and despair had left them hollow. They were ready to follow their general into fire. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Outside, the humans moved. Their ships shifted position, precise and silent. It was as if they already knew what Zirin was about to do. 7, 6, 5. "General, they are surrounding us." An officer cried. "They know, Zirin." Roared back. "Let them know. Let them fear us one final time." 4, 3, 2. The flagship trembled as the cores prepared to release. The last alien fleet glowed with burning energy. But before the final second struck, the humans acted. Their weapons fired in perfect unison. Silent beams cut through the void, each one aimed with deadly precision. Alien ships exploded instantly. One by one the last fleet was erased. The glowing cores ruptured before they could fire, their energy swallowed into nothingness. On the flagship, alarms screamed. The countdown died in static. The weapon that was supposed to burn the humans had been silenced before it could even awaken. The bridge shook violently. Panels burst with sparks. Officers fell to the floor. "General, our weapons are gone. The cores have failed." His second-in-command shouted. Zyron staggered to his feet. His eyes blazed with fury. But behind that fury lay despair. He had played his final card, and the humans had cut it apart as if they had been waiting for it all along. The screen, filled with human ships, their hulls black, their weapons glowing, each one steady, calm, unstoppable. The silence on the bridge was heavy. The last stand had failed before it began. Zyron stared at the humans, his voice low, almost a whisper. "You knew. You saw this coming." No reply came. The humans gave no words, only the cold stare of their weapons. His second-in-command turned to him, her eyes wet. "General, what do we do now?" For the first time in his life, Zyron had no answer. His empire's fleets lay in ruin, his weapons silenced, his last stand destroyed before it even began. He lowered his claws, his voice hollow. "There is nothing left to do." And across the void, as the last embers of the alien fleet drifted into silence, humanity stood unchallenged. The last stand had collapsed into nothingness, and the galaxy would never forget it. The general's confession: the void was silent. The battlefield was gone. Only burning wreckage drifting in endless darkness. Human ships hovered in perfect formation, untouched. Their weapons still glowed, but they did not fire. They didn't need to. On the alien flagship, the lights flickered weakly. The crew sat in silence, too broken to speak. Smoke filled the air. Sparks fell from shattered panels. General Zyron stood at the center of the bridge, his shadow stretching across the floor. He stared at the screen, at the humans. His claws trembled against the war table. For the first time in his long life, he felt truly powerless. His second-in-command broke the silence, her voice hollow. "General, it is over. The Empire is gone." The words cut through the bridge like a blade, and though every officer already knew, hearing them aloud made their hearts sink further. Zyron's jaw clenched. His eyes stayed locked on the human fleet. "They should not exist," he muttered. "Weapons that bend physics, ships that move like thought, strategies that read our every move. No species should hold such power." An officer whispered from the shadows. "Then why do they?" The bridge fell silent again. The question hung heavy, and Zyron's breath grew ragged. He closed his eyes. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Because humans were never meant to follow the rules of the galaxy. They were forged on a death world. Every storm, every predator, every disaster tried to erase them, and still they rose." He gripped the edge of the table until his claws cut into the metal. "We thought they were weak, but their weakness was their weapon. They learned to adapt, to change, to break everything we thought was unbreakable." His second-in-command shook her head slowly. "Then we never had a chance." Zyron's voice grew darker. "No, we had centuries to prepare, but arrogance blinded. U.S. We laughed when the Council warned us of humans. We mocked them as primitives, and now we pay for our pride." The officers bowed their heads. Some wept quietly, not only for themselves, but for the empire that had fallen in one night. A message came through. Human signals. A single broadcast pulsed into their systems. Not words, not threats, just silence followed by coordinates. The meaning was clear. "They are calling us." His second-in-command whispered. "They want us to come to them." Zyron felt his chest tighten. "Not us," he said slowly. "Me." The officers looked at him in shock. He could see it in their eyes. They did not want him to go, but he knew the truth. the humans had chosen. Him, the last general of the Empire. He straightened his back, forcing strength into his broken body. "Prepare the shuttle," he ordered. His second-in-command stepped forward. "General, you cannot go. They will kill you." Zyron's eyes burned with something deeper than fear. "Perhaps, but if I do not go, they will kill all of you. This is no longer about battle. This is about confession." The officers watched as their leader turned away, his steps slow, heavy, but filled with grim purpose. Minutes later, the shuttle drifted into the void. It was small compared to the vast human fleet, a speck of dying metal among predators, but the humans allowed it through. Zyron sat alone in the shuttle, his claws resting on his knees. His thoughts spiraled. He remembered the faces of his soldiers, the pride of his people, the glory of his empire. All of it shattered, all of it burned, and at the center of that ruin, humans. His voice broke into the silence of the shuttle. "They shattered our fleets in minutes. They erased our pride. They showed us what true power means." Lowered his head. "I was a general of the Empire, and now I am nothing but a witness to the truth." Outside the shuttle window, the human flagship loomed closer. Its black hull stretched across the stars like a living shadow. Its lights glowed with calm precision, not fury, not rage, only certainty. And in that moment, General Zyron knew this was not only defeat, this was judgment, this was confession. The truth that shakes the galaxy. The shuttle docked with a soundless click. General Zyron's claws tightened as the doors opened. He stepped out slowly, each step heavy. The air inside the human flagship felt colder, sharper, as if it cut into his skin. The corridor was silent. No guard shouted, no weapons raised. Instead, human soldiers stood like statues, their eyes steady, their weapons ready. They did not need to speak. Their silence was heavier than any threat. Zyron walked between them. His mind screamed with fear, yet his body moved forward. He felt as though the weight of his entire empire was pressing on his back. Every step was a reminder. He was no longer walking as a conqueror, but as the last survivor of a dead empire. At the end of the hall, a chamber opened. Humans stood in rows, silent. Their commander waited at the center, tall, calm, his uniform simple but powerful. He was no emperor, no king, yet the air around him demanded respect. Zyron stopped before him. His claws curled into trembling fists. His voice broke into the silence. "I am General Zyron of the Empire, and I come not to fight, but to speak." The human commander gave a slow nod, his eyes sharp. He said nothing, but his silence allowed Zyron to continue. Zyron's chest heaved. He looked at the humans, then lowered his gaze. "You destroyed us in minutes. You shattered fleets that took centuries to build. You broke an empire that believed itself unbreakable." The words echoed through the chamber. His officers' faces flashed in his memory. His soldiers' screams still burned in his ears. He raised his head, his eyes wet with rage and shame. "And I admit this before you, we were arrogant. We thought ourselves eternal. We thought you weak. But you are something else." The chamber remained silent, yet Zyron felt the humans listening, their silence heavier than any judgment. He continued, his voice trembling. "We believed power was numbers, fleets, weapons, fear. But you showed us power is something else. Power is in will, in adaptation, in refusing to break even when the universe tries to erase you." His claws struck the floor as his anger turned inward. "We were blind. Our pride consumed us. We laughed when others warned us of humans. We called you primitives. And now, I confess, you are the storm, and we are nothing but dust before it." The silence deepened. He felt his words sink into the air, heavier than any weapon. Zyron's voice lowered to almost a whisper. "This is the truth the galaxy must hear. The Empire is gone. The fleets are ash, and humanity is the judgment we never believed in." For the first time, the human commander stepped forward. His boots echoed on the metal floor. He stopped inches away from Zyron. His voice was low. "Steady. You finally understand." Zyron bowed his head, his pride gone. His confession complete. "Yes, I understand, and I admit it. Before you, before the galaxy, we were defeated. Not in war, but in spirit. You broke us not with fire, but with truth." The chamber was still. Then the human commander turned away, his words cutting like steel. "Your empire will never rise again, and the galaxy will remember this day. They will remember who stood and who fell." Zyron closed his eyes, his heart heavy, but strangely calm. The confession was out. The truth was spoken. The Empire's pride was gone, but the galaxy would hear the warning. He whispered into the silence, "May they remember? May they all remember." And as the human fleet moved through the void, silent and unstoppable, the galaxy trembled. For in that confession, in those words of defeat, lay a truth that would echo across every star. Humans had shattered an empire in minutes, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.